Welcome to the AxeCast podcast. Conversations with interesting people from the world of Acadia athletics and more, talking about their lives, successes, and failures. And now let's join hosts Len Hawley and Eric Cederberg for the next 15 to 20 minutes as they dive into the life of today's guest.
This week on the AxeCast, we're joined by the Director of Varsity Athletics for Acadia University, Kevin Dickie. And Kevin, it's interesting, this time of the year, you and I would usually do a radio interview and we would talk about the first half and how the teams have performed. Obviously, we're in a different place. And I think if I say that we're in unprecedented times, somebody may throw something at me. But the reality is we are in a whole different world right now. Just talk about the last 3 or 4 months and just an overall sense from athletics at Acadia.
Yeah, it's, you know what, we're all getting a little long in the tooth, and I can't think of maybe a question professionally that's a harder one to answer. I really don't even, it just depends on the day, the emotions, the perspective of the whole thing. So, we can kind of chip away at it, but it's funny, you said unprecedented times, and it's just such an overused buzzword right now. I think the other one, but we all fall back on it, is it is what it is. Like, how many times have we said that, or have we heard people saying it? So I don't know, it's those two things, I guess. It's just, it really is, the ground keeps shifting below our feet and we keep trying to adjust accordingly. And for us, our world is sports, and our sports world has really been, shut down, which makes it hard. Walking into this conversation here, I ran into 3 or 4 student athletes that are training. And normally when you train, you're looking forward to that next win or even the loss. And, for us right now, it's not there. But again, getting back to what I said before, it's also keeping it in perspective and realizing that, sports is only a part of life, and it's a big part for us. But there are other things that are certainly way, way more important right now.
Obviously, health is key in all of the markets and all the provinces and all the campuses and what have you. So maybe we break it down this way. Just a general thought on the mental condition of student athletes and how they've been able to deal with this over the last 3 months. What are you seeing through your lens that gives you hope, maybe gives you some concerns?
Well, I think student athletes are again, talk about overused terms, but they're a metaphor of people. They're a representation of people, and I think that there's no difference. And again, it gets back to all of the things that we read and hear. And I think you and I have talked about this, Len. There's a storm out there, but the storm is bigger for some people than it is for others. And someday, even for us as individuals, the storm is bigger than it is the next day. So I don't think our student athletes are any different of a representation than the rest of our students and the rest of society. I think that, it's difficult. There are days that are more difficult. And, again, let's be honest. The mental health of people in general is an important thing right now, maybe more important than ever before. You see some of the things that are happening, and, a lot of relationships change. You read about addictions changing for people and that type of thing. Those are the things that we try to have our finger on the pulse of to the best that we can. Our coaches, they're good people. They care about our student athletes more than they, more as people than they do people that help us win. Eric's been a big part of, we've got the Acadia For You program that's there to provide support for our student athletes, and we're doing the best that we can.
Kevin, when I talk to alumni and when I talk to, fans of athletics on the street, a common question would be, what are the athletes doing on a week-to-week basis? And, obviously it's not the same, but maybe give people a sense of just how routines have been affected and how they're trying to keep them the same as they've been in the past.
Yeah, you know what? I'll break that down to a couple of parts. We told our fall sport teams, 5 teams, cross country, rugby, football, 2 soccer teams back in June, that they wouldn't have sports in the fall. And they've blown me away. It's been incredible. They're literally, again, I get back to what I said before. Why do you put in the work? You put in the work to win or lose. And so we've had to adjust things. It's now been about how can we get better as athletes and teams to try and win or lose next fall. And they're again, I'm generalizing, but to a group, to a team, to a person, they've been incredible in the fall term, and so appreciated, been inspired by what they've been doing. Our winter sport teams, at the beginning, it was kind of funny. You were excited because there was a light at the end of the tunnel for them. And it started out, they were hanging on to this rope, and then it became a thread, and then the thread got cut. And so I think they were training with the idea that come January, we'd be able to compete. And I hope you ask me about that, because I do want to touch on what January could look like here. But when, we knew that there was no formal AUS sports, it's probably been difficult for them. In some ways, it might have been better to know right at the beginning. But, again, we've got some light at the end of the tunnel in January. We're living in one of the top provinces in terms of, health related to COVID. And I think there are some opportunities that our winter sport teams will hopefully get a chance to be able to do some competition.
Well, it is a good segue in that you bring that up, and I did want to raise it with you. And, obviously the winter sport teams are not going to be playing for an AUS championship, but the door has been open here for winter sport teams to compete at some level. How do you see this unfolding, and do you think it will unfold?
I do. And when I say that, I mean, the caveat to the whole thing is that our province can stay healthy. And, that's the first part. So right now we've got 5 AUS teams in Atlantic Canada, in Nova Scotia. And so there's opportunities there in the sports of, volleyball, hockey, and basketball. Our swim teams, we know that we can't gather in large numbers. Like swim meets used to be five schools meeting, but they can compete virtually. They can compare scores. They can, go head to head with the other schools. But what I would see happening here is that if our province can stay safe, that certain schools in Nova Scotia will opt into some form of competition. For me personally, I'd rather it be more than exhibition games. There's no reason that we can't set up challenges. There's no reason that we can't set up some type of something to play for. And I do see that happening. And you know what, if we can just stay the course here and Atlantic Canada can get back to what it was before, who knows, maybe we can cross borders once or twice and start playing sports against, schools from Prince Edward Island, schools from New Brunswick. Newfoundland's obviously a little bit more difficult because you either got to go by air or water. But I'm telling you, that's the thing that kind of keeps me energized a little bit here. We've tried to make sure with our student athletes that we're not going to over deliver, or we don't want to offer too much. We don't want to have things not turn out. So we're trying to keep it tight to the vest, but they know everything I've just told you, so we're excited about that.
Okay, so have to think a little bit long term here, Kevin. And I mean, under normal circumstances, we'd have basically 3 months left of the varsity sport year. Fall sports especially would be up to their eyeballs in recruiting, and I mean recruiting happens all the time. We've seen some announcements recently. I know with football and women's basketball announcing some incoming student athletes for next year. Do you have a sense that that's a positive end of things right now in terms of the recruiting?
I think so. I think one of the advantages that we have as well is that we've been one of the few schools in the country that have had students on campus. I have to think it's an opportunity for us in terms of recruiting. There are a lot of people that are playing sports that aren't actually able to even be on their campuses right now. So for us, I think the fact that we have had this happening through the fall term, is something at least we can present to families in terms of some advantages of Acadia, but certainly next year, I mean, that's, we definitely want to and are hoping and anticipating that in the fall we'll be starting with sports. One of the challenges that we have right now, and Eric and I talk about this all the time, and it's kind of, Eric's got the lead on the whole thing, is if we can get somebody on our campus and they can spend a couple days in Wolfville on our campus, we got a good shot at them. Right now they can't. So how does the campus go to them? And we're trying to do more things virtually right now. It's kind of cool. When I left here for lunch today, Kevin Duffy was walking through our complex with his phone, doing a virtual tour on his iPhone. And then he ended up going outside and walking around campus. I had a chance to see him when I was driving down Main Street. So, you get handed lemons, you got to try and make lemonade the best you can.
Before we get into some, non-Acadia topics, there's not a campus in the country, Acadia included, that's not been affected by this pandemic financially. Athletics, launched an athletics appeal in late October, basically going to the masses, and these would be former student athletes and friends of Acadia Athletics, seeking support. You're on a video, Kevin, that talks about, look, things are going to look different when we get on the other side of COVID. Maybe just speak to that a little bit and the importance of garnering that support in the months and years to come.
Yeah, I mean, really what you just said. I mean, it's going to look different. Everything looks different. I mean, I went for lunch downtown today. It did not look the same. It didn't look the same from masks to glass to paper menus. And with that is two things. I mean, it's sad when it changes things that you don't want to have changed, but it also gives that particular restaurant an opportunity to think differently. And I think that's probably an example of all businesses, organizations, ours for sure. And, so when we come out of this, it is going to be different. And I think that one of the things that's going to be different for us is financially. Our university, and you've heard me say this for 10 years here, treats us awful well. We're a small school with a broad-based program. I've never felt for a second that we've been shortchanged. Could we use more? Absolutely, 100% for sure. Are we competing against markets that have more than us across the country? 100%. But we know that through COVID, the university is going to take a bit of a hit here. Again, there could be some trickle down to us, and we have to be able to plan ahead. And, what we really need right now is we need the people that are supporting us to continue to support us. But just like I do with a couple of institutions that I had a chance to be a part of, I give back because I enjoyed my experiences there. And, that's life across the world and definitely across North America, to have the axemen and the axewomen of the past that we're so proud of, and we stand on their shoulders here, as a program right now, that hopefully if they've had a great experience in the past, and I think almost 100% of them have, is that hopefully that they can give to this new era and new generation of student athletes coming through. And, it's everything from making our program better, and I'll be honest with you, in some cases, survival of the program. And I can't pull any punches with that one. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we do know that we're going to need resources way, way beyond what we have right now.
Kevin, I did want to step outside the Acadia box, and a lot of it because of your background. I know you pay attention to the sports scene nationally, internationally, and I'm thinking of events like World Junior Hockey. The guys are going to be in a bubble. Teams are practicing in Edmonton. You were an assistant coach with Team Canada when it was overseas. I don't want to date you here, but we're going back 15 or 20 years. Just give me a sense of what your thoughts are here when you look at what's going on with the World Juniors.
I just had this conversation over lunch today. Like, everybody's just plowing through. Like, it's strange. Like, and we don't know everything. So if you think about the World Juniors and you go, okay, well, why? There are a lot of dollars at play. I think it's therapeutic for people at Christmas time. Our families all look forward to watching. But then you think about some East Coast League hockey teams are playing and some aren't. Soccer in Europe, some are, some aren't. And it's mind-boggling to get your head around. And, again, I was a part of 2 world championships, and you actually felt like you were in a bubble then when you could go outside and you could walk. I'm trying to picture this thing. I'm trying to picture the way it's going to play out. And boy, I'll tell you, if we can come out of this with a World Junior Championship, a ton of credit to everybody involved, but especially to the athletes that are going to make that commitment. I mean, it's a badge of honor for the rest of your life. But I'll tell you, it's going to be hard. I mean, you think about these Canadian kids that have been quarantined for 14 days. Can you imagine? Like, it's just been incredible. And so I got my thoughts on things at different times. There are some times where I think, what's the point of doing this? And then there are other times where maybe I understand a little better, this is the point. But I'm like all of us, we're just kind of, you see the things that are happening down in the States, and you're watching a college football game on a Saturday afternoon, and you're looking up there and you're going, there's tens of thousands of people that are watching this football game without masks on their face. And, I think I've given you my opinion on that scenario right there. But again, it's just hard to judge, I guess, why people do what they do.
I mean, you've coached at different levels too. You've been an athletic director at different schools. Put on your psychological hat for just a minute, and I'm thinking of it through the lens of Joe Q fan. So the National Hockey League, for example, looks very much like they're going to start mid-January with a 50 or 60 game schedule. And we don't know what goes on. We don't know what we don't know. And those guys have to live in whatever bubble or whatever that scenario. But as a fan, and you think of no college sports, no university sports, I, for one, am sitting here, just licking my chops that the puck will drop on January 13th. Just give us a sense of that.
I'm like you. You think about it, it's like I'm a golfer. You guys know, I'm a golfer. Somebody can't understand what golf meant to some of us when we had a chance to step on the course going back to May. We got our seasons extended. We're still playing here in December in some courses in Nova Scotia. So I can't explain that to somebody that doesn't golf. If you're not into sports, you can't explain how excited you get through, a pandemic to be able to watch a college football game on a Saturday afternoon. So I think it has been therapeutic. There are people whose love is music. And you think about those kitchen parties that were happening. We'd never watch a kitchen party 2 years ago on TV. Now we've got it PVR'd, and we're probably watching it a couple of times over. So yeah, it's just a different time. And I think that anything that we can have and use that are positive vices, I think it is helping us cope with this whole situation.
Would you, if you put your coach's hat and you went back 20 years ago, where would Kevin Dickie be with this whole pandemic, playing in bubbles, not playing? Where would you be right now?
Well, first of all, you're going to get a laugh from anybody who's watching this about Kevin Duffy. So I should be calling you Len Harvey right now is what I should be doing. It's interesting, right? It'd be hard you just have to think differently. It's interesting. And you guys have heard me use this quote before. In fact, our department's probably getting tired of it, but I got a lot of respect. One of my favorite coaches is Mike Tomlin with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they were 10-0 when he had this quote. And I think the quote explains the way I hope I would be. And Mike Tomlin talked about the fact that, at this particular time, there are challenges and disappointments that are happening through COVID, but his job as a leader or a coach is to turn it upside down, to turn negatives into positives, to turn them into opportunities that the competition isn't doing. And I think that's what's allowed them to win. So how would I be? I don't know. How would I hope I'd be? I'd hope that I would control exactly what I can control and try and stay as positive as I could be. One of the things, and you two were a part of it yesterday, we had such an incredible morning. We had our December retreat, which is normally at literally a retreat. We're shoulder to shoulder and we're having fun. And at the end of the day, we're breaking bread with our staff and coaches. But yesterday it was virtual. But we had, Mark Shapiro from the Toronto Blue Jays. Can you imagine one of the top CEO in professional sports talking to us? And then we had, our former president who, now is doing consulting, out there in the world in terms of working with organizations through COVID and talking to us about, what the world is like right now. And we were all just taking it all in, but it had one common theme. It had the theme of controlling what you can control and trying to keep things as positive and realistic as you can. So I hope that's how I would be, but I'd probably blow the mission thinking about, I don't know. I'd hope that's the way I would be.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. And I know our alumni and fans of Acadia sports are waiting with bated breath to see if something can happen, within the next 3 or 4 months. But if not, I'm one of these people. I hope I'm an optimist, and I think we'll be on the other side of it when September rolls around and we can see these teams play a full season.
Yeah, for sure. No, and it's anyway, we're all, nobody knows what's around the corner, and we'll just go from there.
Well, Kevin, we certainly hope that teams will be back and playing in September. And I'm an optimist, and we get on the other side of this pandemic, and life will return to some level of normalcy. I really appreciate you doing this, taking the time to talk about Acadia and some thoughts outside the box.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And anytime you get a chance to talk about Acadia, it's something that we love doing.